This woman was named Barb. I'm not going to tell you her last name, but she would go, "Hello, boys. Hello, boys." And she always had Marlboro Red hanging out of her mouth. Her and her husband would sit in these lazy boy recliners, and they would just smoke and watch the tube and drink a little sangria or maybe a little wine on a holiday or a special occasion. Weekends would be a little sangria. To make a batch of sangria. And she was fucking hilarious. When I remember one day she walked into the kitchen and we were eating barbecue chicken pizza and drinking Lactate, and she just looked at us and she went, "Hello, boys." She goes, "You know, you boys are disgusting." Two chubby kids eating pizza, drinking Lactate. And I don't even think we looked at her. I think we just kept eating. I don't even think we looked at her. He had an older brother who was a cop now, who was like an in-shape guy who was disgusted by us. He wouldn't even look at us. He hated his brother and he hated me. And he would always say things like, his brother had a room in the basement, and his older brother would be like, "What are you two guys doing, fucking each other down there?" And we weren't, but it was a fun thing to say. And like, and his mother would always be like, "Enough of that." He's like, what are they doing down there? Fucking each other? She'd be like, "Language." And we wouldn't even, we just keep eating. You know it's good barbecue chicken pizza when you just keep going. People could say whatever they want about you. But I'll tell you, it's funny when I think about like that time. You hear different stories about how like people grow up. You know, like we have now it's like, everybody now is like, it's nicer now. It's a nicer world, I guess. I mean, I'm sure it is. People are kinder, gentler. They try to be. I don't know that I think in some cases that's great. You know, it ain't funny. I'll tell you that much, because we would get brutalized, but it was very funny when you looked back on some of the things people would just say to you. It was, she wasn't even mad when she was like, "You boys are disgusting." She was just making an observation that was accurate. And it was just really, really funny. And you can't. I had another friend whose mother was like a high priced call girl at one time. And I'm talking like when I'm in junior high. And her mom was a sexual woman, an older woman, but a sexual woman. Like, she said to me and my friend once, we were standing in her kitchen, and I think a girl in our grade had just gotten pregnant. It was kind of like a big deal. And the mother came up to us. The mother had like 3 names, like different names throughout her life, but they all ended with an I. One was Tony, one was Brandy, and one was Tawny. And they all ended with an I. And like people knew her as different names throughout her life. She's one of my favorite people to this day. She drove me and her daughter when we were in 8th grade to a head shop to buy bongs, and she drove us there hammered. And she was drinking in the car, and she was chugging. I forget, what is the thing that I don't think it was Jaeger, but she was just chugging. What's the thing that's like tastes like medicine almost? Was it Black House? What's Black House? I could be totally wrong here, but
Black House liquor?
maybe it was that.
Is it the Purple Label?
I think it was. I can't be sure. Yeah, I think it might have been. I don't know what it was. It was something that her daughter liked.
Tastes like blackberry.
And she drove us to the head shop. We're in 8th grade. Drove us to the head shop to buy a nice bong. Her daughter got a beautiful glass bong. And she was drinking Black House. And she looked at me. And she looked at her daughter. And she saw we had all this weed. And she goes, we're going to have a good night on earth tonight. Swear to God. And she's a great woman. This was a good woman. Now, this is, I guess, to many people listening, they would disagree with that. And they would have maybe an argument, sure. But I remember after this, we found out this girl got pregnant. Me and my friend Shay were standing in this woman's kitchen. And she said, you know what you do? You know how you can avoid this? And we were doing nothing. We eating barbecue chicken pizza. We're not fucking anyone. We're not getting hand jobs. Nothing was going on. No two people needed that talk less than me and this kid. I was just a sexually confused foodie. And then this kid wasn't really fucking anyone either. So we weren't like virile, like strapping young guys that were like, siring a fucking brood of children. She came up to us. You got to remember, we're in 8th grade. They came up to us and she goes, you know what you do when people ask if you fuck? That's what she said. Because people ask if you're having sex, if you're fucking, you tell them no. You say, I fuck myself. You say, I treat myself real good. She was like in front of us, right in our face. She goes, you say, I treat myself real good. I masturbate and I have sex. And me and him were like just so stoned. And this was maybe the funniest thing that had ever happened in our lives. That this woman, who was clearly, she had the energy of a madam. Like every madam that's ever been portrayed in any popular culture, it's this woman. And she was like, you tell them you treat yourself real good. And I remember standing there with him, and then she left the room, and we collapsed on the floor laughing so hard. And then there was a guy who lived downstairs named Uncle Rick, and he had no tongue. He had like half a tongue. He would talk like this. And he'd go, Tony, like he had half a tongue. I don't know why. Cancer. He had a problem. Something happened. And we're laughing. We're on his kitchen floor. He opens his door and he goes, get off the fucking floor. And we were now crying, laughing. He's like, you two fat fucks, get off the floor. And we just stumbled out of the house, crying, tears streaming down our face. I think I left my jacket there. It was like fucking December. It's cold. And I mean, not 6 months later, we do acid at this woman's house. We tell her, she knows we're all doing acid. And we loved hanging out in that house. We loved it, me and my friend. We never wanted to leave. But like her daughter wanted to leave because she lived there. So like a bunch of kids would come over the house. We'd do all kinds of drugs. And then the daughter would leave with the kids and like go to the park or go walk around or go meet other people. Me and my friend were like, no, we'll hang at the house. We thought it was a little resort. It was on the water. It was like a bigger house. It's just nice. We just liked being in the house. So what happened was the daughter and some of our other friends go to trip acid. They're like, we want to be in nature. We want to go to the park and maybe we'll go to the beach. Me and my friend are like, no, thanks. We'll just hang out in Lisa's room. And the mother opens the door So just as we're tripping, and she comes in and she starts dancing, and she goes, "Do the funky." Like she was doing the funky chicken dance, and she was kind of talking like Uncle Rick for whatever reason. She's like, "Do the funky, do the funky," and we just stared at her. And then she looked at us and she went, "Now you'll never know if that really happened or not." And she just shut the door. This woman was a great woman. One time a guy ripped her daughter off for drugs. And she just started calling every drug dealer in town and telling them that this guy was a rat and he was working for the police. I remember that. She called every single person. She goes, "I just want to let you know that Jonathan's working for the police. Jonathan's a rat. And he's working for the police. Do with that information what you want." I mean, she got out of a car once and accosted this guy. My friend's a lesbian, this girl, and she always dated strippers, like hot strippers that were kind of crazy. And then one of those strippers was at the house once, and apparently her mother walked outside and just mushed her. You like mush someone's face, when you take your hand and mush their face. So she mushed her stripper girlfriend's face in the car. And, me and my friend were always there. We were always there, just two chubby kids in every drama, every family problem. We was just standing there, just there. And the stripper walks in and she's like, "Tony mushed me. She just mushed me." And we went in there and Tony looked at her daughter and goes, "I don't know what she's talking about. I think she's sick. I think she's very sick." And then we went in Tony's room and Tony goes, she gave us a Vicodin each. And she goes, "Shh." And then she showed us each how she mushed her. She showed us each how she did it. We were so happy. We took a little Vicodin. We're sitting there. And she goes, "I just went up to her and I mushed her in her face." Tony's like, "You had to see her face."